What's up, spooky people? It's time for another episode of the Spooky Corner. And today, we're going to be talking about 5 of the scariest WWE superstars. When it comes to the WWE or just wrestling in general, character plays a huge part in a wrestler's success. And I can go on and on about my favorites and my favorite wrestlers and why, but today, I'm going to be focusing on the scary ones. My top 5 scariest WWE superstars. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and let's dig into it. Let's start off with one that's not really as scary as it is creepy and cool to me. I'm talking about Kevin Thorne. Kevin Thorne isn't the only vampire we've had in WWE history, but he is definitely my favorite. In my opinion, he's a lot cooler than Gangrel. And maybe that's because I wasn't really around too much for Gangrel, but I was definitely around for Kevin Thorne because I was 11 years old when he came out. And I think that had a huge part to play in why I thought he was so cool. When I saw a vampire wrestler come out, especially one in the ring kicking ass, doing moves like this, I was sold right there. But that isn't the only reason I like Kevin Thorne so much. There was another huge reason, and it really didn't even have much to do with him as it did his girlfriend Arielle. Oh man, my 11-year-old self went wild when they came out, okay? My hormones were raging, the blood was definitely pumping through to places that, I'm not even gonna get into that. She would be on the side of the ring screaming and hollering, and when they won, they would try and bite each other's necks. It was great. But sadly, only about a year later, Arielle would go missing from TV. My 11-year-old heart was broken in two because she was gone. WWE put the stake in her heart and sent her on her way, never to be seen again. And actually, months later, I think months later, Kevin Thorne would go missing as well, never to be seen again. They sent him back to the cave to hang out with the rest of the Lost Boys. Moving on, if your parents ever told you that the Boogieman wasn't real, they were wrong, because he was. The Boogieman was one of the scariest superstars I've ever seen, and I don't think I really need to explain to you why. He was a 6-foot-tall monster of a man with the creepiest face paint job you've ever seen, and the missing teeth in the front definitely didn't help. But he wasn't just another pretty face on the roster. He also nailed the art of the scary entrance. He would come out of this red fog like he was coming out of another world, like he was coming out of Boogie World. Just imagine that crawling out from under your bed. Ugh. And he would have this clock in his hand, which then he would proceed to smash on his head. Glass would be on his face and he would laugh, showing his no teeth in the front. It was wild, but it was super entertaining. One of the creepiest entrances ever. But once he got to the ring, I don't remember him putting on any wrestling clinics. He wasn't known for his 5-star matches, but he did have one secret weapon. It helped him win some of his matches and also just grossed out everybody that watched him, and that was worms. He had tons of worms either in his pocket or just in a bag, and he would come out so he can drop them on his opponent's body, drop them on their face, or even shove them in their mouth. Honestly, I think he enjoyed having the worms in his mouth a lot more, because every time you turn around, he had worms hanging out, like a mouthful of worms hanging out. He would just be shaking worms everywhere out of his mouth. It was disgusting. You could always find him in the back, in a dark part of the arena, in like a closet or something, singing nursery rhymes, laughing creepily. He was awesome. And I can't lie, like I don't know if this is just me, but after every Boogeyman segment, I can always find myself being really hungry for some noodles. Now, he doesn't really wrestle anymore, but he still does come back from time to time for one more good scare. Let's move on to number 3, and this is the perfect spot for these guys because there was 3 of them in this group. And of course, I'm talking about the Wyatt family. Definitely my second favorite group next to the Shield, the Wyatt Family was a creepy cult of a bunch of huge guys, huge scary men from the swamp. That's what I love about these guys, right? Like, they look like they were plucked right out of a Rob Zombie horror movie. That's their charm. And you see, the thing is, they're not really like supernatural, spooky, ooga booga booga characters like the ones that I just told you about just now. They are just like outcasts that got together so they can kick people's face in and take over the world. And then, when you mix that in with their creepy video packages, the sheep mask, and of course, the eerie entrance where they came out with nothing but a lantern to light their path. One of my favorite entrances of all time. Always, it gave me goosebumps when they first debuted, and it still does from time to time, even though they're not together. Spoiler alert, you probably know that already, but I'll get to that in just a second. First, you got Luke Harper, who is one of my favorite wrestlers, and he played up this crazy swamp killer guy the best. Then you got Eric Rowan, who donned the famous Wyatt Family sheep mask, which they used in a lot of their mind games. One of my favorite examples of this is when they tried to scare John Cena, and they had a bunch of kids surround the ring singing nursery rhymes and wearing the sheep masks. And of course, you got the chubby Charles Manson, the leader himself, Bray Wyatt, the talker of the group, and a great talker at that. Like, he goes on these Shakespearean monologues about how he's gonna eat your world, how he's gonna take you out, he's gonna sacrifice you to Sister Abigail, the world is hell. You know, he can make like a trip to the grocery store to get some milk sound scary, honestly. But the thing is, he can talk as much as he wants. He always gets his ass kicked at the end of the day, which kind of sucks because I love the group. But this guy always came out, talked a bunch of crap, and then just got beat up every time. I mean, it still happens. Sadly, as you probably know though, the Wyatts are not together anymore. They split them up, but hopefully, in true WWE fashion, we can get a good old Swamp Family reunion. Oh yeah, and I know what some of you are probably saying right now. Oh, what about Braun Strowman and Randy Orton and Daniel Bryan? They were in the Wyatt Family too. But my favorite version of this group is with just the 3 originals. Now we're getting to the real scary stuff. This guy definitely deserves a proper introduction. For years, his presence has struck a massive amount of fear into the hearts of audience members and opponents alike. He's literally tried and succeeded at burying people alive. He may just be the most dangerous and scariest superstar of all time. And that man's name is John Cena! Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. Definitely not Cena. Although, you know, he could be the scariest superstar of all time. There's a bunch of reasons, but I'm not gonna get into that right now. That's a whole different video. I'm talking about the big red machine, Kane. The devil's favorite demon, the Jason Voorhees of the WWE. And I gotta call him that because he is definitely the most savage wrestler of all time. I don't care what anybody says. He's literally like WWE's serial killer. If you do any of the stuff Kane has done at your own job, you would be either in an asylum or you would be in jail. But apparently in WWE, all is forgiven and you can get away with everything he's done. I just have like a tiny little list of some of his epic moments of savagery. And here it is. First off, he he gave Linda McMahon a pile driver onto the steel stage. And she's not the only woman he's attacked. Who can forget when he electrocuted Shane McMahon's balls? And guys, you already know. I mean, just like a flick. Just a flick to the ball sack is enough to have you on the floor writhing in pain. So just imagine getting him shocked, getting him electrocuted. And what about when he threw Zack Ryder off a stage when he was in a wheelchair with a broken freaking neck? And I think he also lost his girlfriend to John Cena after that. So you can't really have much of a worse day. Then, of course, the most savage moment of Kane's career when he set JR, good old Jim Ross, on fire. Now, okay, when you watch this scene back, it's not really as frightening as it shows up in your memory bank, but it's still a savage moment. Like, you set the guy on fire. And that's just a small little bit of Kane's evil, demonic deeds over the years. There's tons of other ones. As you could probably tell, he loves fire. He could just control fire and just have it burst out of nowhere. There's fire coming out of the stage, fire coming out of the post, fire coming out of his ass. And apparently, it also comes in handy and it makes a good can opener. According to his beefaroni commercial. But as many of you probably know by now, time has not been kind to Kane's overall appearance or character, because he definitely downgraded over the years. First, he was, he came out looking awesome with the big red machine mask. He looked scary as hell. Then he took the mask off and he was still very scary. That's when he was at his most savagery. Then he put the mask back on. And this is like, oh, I'm gonna dress up as Kane for Halloween with a cheap Kane mask. Then it even got worse with corporate Kane. I don't even know what they were thinking about with this. This is like, hey, I'll see you at the water cooler Kane. This just ain't scary. And by now, he's pretty much like that girlfriend or that boyfriend that you broke up with 10 years ago and they totally let themselves go, and you end up seeing them on the street or on Facebook and you're just like, ugh, thank God I missed out on that one. Dude, at one point, like when I was growing up, he was literally like the scariest thing out. Everybody would run when he would come out. They would shit themselves. Like, he almost made it to the scariest on my list, but I just can't do it because he's just not the same. I really miss that Kane. I really miss him so much. Oh my God. Anyway, like an old flame Kane, we'll always remember the good times. So last but definitely not least, number one on my list, the biggest dog in the yard. No, not Roman Reigns. No. I'm talking about the dead man, the phenom, the Undertaker. Of course it's gonna be the Undertaker. Everybody is afraid of him, and everybody has a right to be afraid of him. It's probably because he has an incredible amount of supernatural abilities. The dead man can literally control lightning, and he could just crack lightning right in your face, which he's done to many people. Collapse the ring on Kurt Angle. Holy shit. And of course you got those moments where he appears or disappears out of nowhere after a good. Or he could just bust through the damn ring. And I remember the time when he possessed Josh Matthews. And we got the sacrifices. It's just way too much for me to talk about right now. It's a lot. I just can't fit it all in right now. That's what she said. The thing I love about him the most, though, is how committed he is to his character and how badass he is with it. Like, he incorporates it into every aspect of himself and wrestling. Like, he has his mannerisms, the throat slit one, or when he rolls his eyes in the back of his head. I used to try and do that one all the time as a kid. Did I do it? Ow. I always get a headache when I try that, so I really don't do it that often. It even bleeds into his match stipulations. You got the last ride match, the buried alive match, the casket match. There's just so many, and I can't not talk about the entrance, where he comes to the ring with the smoke and the lights, walking as slow as humanly possible, the way that we walk to work on a Monday morning, with the epic funeral music playing in the background, just... It's like one of the coolest things you'll ever see, especially if you're a wrestling fan, obviously. That's not my favorite entrance of his. I like the one where he came down as American Badass with the motorcycle, like... But in short, to wrap this up, I'm just gonna say he definitely does the horror gimmick the best. He is the scariest, and he has kept it consistent throughout the years. I mean, he changed with the times, with all his different character changes. He stayed scary. He stayed a badass. He's the man. Well, I'm sorry. He's the dead man. So that is my top 5 scariest WWE superstars of all time. Let me know 6 feet deep below in the comment section what you thought about that. Let me know your top 5 favorites, who you think the scariest one is. Maybe you totally disagree with my list. Maybe you're like, oh, what about Papa Shango? Why isn't he on the list, man? He's really scary. I don't know, maybe you think Umaga should be on the list. I don't know, you let me know in the comment section. Now that is all the time I got today for the Spooky Corner. Make sure that you like, make sure that you subscribe, and of course, come back next time for some more spooky stuff.